Well, praise the Lord, saints. So, I just wanted to do a follow-up video because this coming week is Sunday Fun Day weekend. So there's not going to be a class, and so we're going to go another 2 weeks without a class. But we just wanted to stay in contact with you and continue to educate and motivate you to find financial peace. Amen. And so last week was lesson 3, where we learned about baby step number 3, which is to build up 3 to 6 months of savings. Okay, which is something that you do after you pay off your debt. And it could take a while to build that up. It could take a year or longer, but it's a biblical thing. And I wanted to share you a story from the Bible about why this is such an important step. I think it's probably the most important step. And this is from Genesis chapter 41. It's the story of Joseph when he was called to interpret the Pharaoh's dream. And if you recall, Pharaoh had a dream of 7 fat cows, and then he saw 7 skinny cows. And the 7 fat cows got eaten by the 7 skinny cows. And they were still skinny after they had eaten those 7 fat cows. And he woke up and he was perplexed, and then he saw the 7 fat, healthy, beautiful haystacks that got eaten by these 7 lean and withered haystacks. And he called all his wise men to interpret this dream, and none could. They called Joseph, and he interpreted the dream. And he said what that dream signifies is 7 prosperous years are coming, and following those 7 prosperous years will be 7 lean years. And the leanness of those 7 years will be so great that they will not remember the prosperity of the previous 7. And he said, if you're smart, you'll find a man who will, during the 7 good years, take up 1/5 of all that you earn and save it up in preparation of the 7 lean years to come. And it was such a wise idea that the Pharaoh and all his wise men were so impressed by this ex-con. They had just pulled him out of prison, that they said, you're the man, you do it. No one else wanted the job, which would have been a great job. It'd been number 2 in the kingdom behind Pharaoh, and no one volunteered for the job. They said, you know what, this guy's the right guy for the job. So he did it. And for 7 years, during the prosperous years, he saved up 20% every year of all that the nation produced. Basically, it was a tax. And because the 7 years were good, people had money to pay it. And he collected grain, is what he collected. And he started building silos in every city just to store up the grain. And that's all they did, was save it. He didn't spend it. He didn't say, oh man, we sure got a lot of grain saved up. Maybe we should do some home improvements. Maybe we should help the people that are less fortunate. He didn't do any of that. All he did was save it. Maybe we should invest it. You know, we have all this grain starting to build up after 3, 4, 5 years. They didn't do anything with it. They didn't go out and buy a new car, build a new castle, anything. All they did was save it for 7 years. Save it, save it, save it. And then the 7 years of prosperity ended, and the famine began, just as he had predicted. And the people come to the Pharaoh and they say, give us to eat, for we perish. And he said, talk to Joseph, he's in charge. So they went to Joseph, and guess what he did? He opened up those silos and he started selling the grain so that the people could have bread to eat. And a year went by and the famine continued. And the people come to Joseph and they said, sell us bread so we don't have it, because we don't have anything. And they said, he said, sure, I'll sell you bread. They said, but we don't have any money left. We gave you all our money last year. And he said, well, what do you got? And they said, well, we have our livestock. We'll sell you that. So Joseph started buying up all the livestock, which you could call stock. It's just livestock. He started buying up all the stock. And he started buying it cheap because he was the only one buying. No one else had money. Joseph was the only one that was smart enough to save money during the prosperous years, that he had this war chest of cash. So when the people came in need, he was able to sell them bread. He was able to buy their stock. And if he was the only one buying, everyone was selling, what do you think the price of that stock happened to the price of that stock? It went down. He bought it at a very favorable terms. Okay? He started buying up all the stock, the livestock. The third year came, the famine continued. And the people said, give us bread for we perish. And he said, yeah, I'll sell you some bread. They said, but we gave you all our money. We gave you all our stock. All we have left is our land. He said, okay, I'll buy you your land. So he started buying real estate in the third year. This is a third year into a famine. No one was buying real estate. Only people were selling because they needed the money. So what kind of terms do you think Joseph got when he was buying this real estate? He got it at a great price. He started buying up real estate. Why? Because he was the one that was smart enough to save during the good times and build up a savings. Right? So he starts buying up the real estate. The fourth year comes and goes, and the famine continues. People don't have any food, so they come to Joseph and they ask him to sell us bread so that we could eat. And the people said, we have no money. You took it from us. We have no stock. We have no real estate. You own it all. He said, okay, work for me. I'll buy your labor from you for an indefinite period in the future. It's an IOU, right? I'll lend it to you and you work it off. So eventually, do you see what happened? Because he had built up savings. He had built up a war chest, so he was prepared when the famine came, when the opportunity came to the first thing he did was he started a business. He started a bakery. He opened up Pharaoh's Bakery, which he could have done any time during the 7 years as he was building up this grain. He could have said at any time, man, we got plenty of grain. We should open up a bakery. But why would he open up a bakery when everything was good and there was a bakery on every corner? When the famine hit, all those bakeries shut down because they didn't have any grain to make bread. So guess what? Pharaoh's Bakery was the only bakery in town. How well do you think that business did? There was a line out the door because it was the only one. He was very smart. And he wasn't buying stock during the good times. He had cash. He goes, man, the economy is good. We should buy up some stock. He did not. He just built up his savings and built up his savings to the time when there was nobody buying stocks. They were only selling. He was the only buyer, and he bought it cheap. Right? Same thing with real estate. Look at his portfolio. He had a business, he had stocks, he had real estate, and then he had got all this cheap labor. Why? Because he had intelligently built up savings. This is baby step 3. This is gonna be the key to your success as we enter into baby steps 4, 5, and 6, which is starting to build wealth. Okay? And I'm telling you, I've been helping people build wealth for 35 years. And this is where I see people either be successful or not. Cash is king. If people start a business without sufficient cash, eventually there's going to come a problem. And if they don't have the cash to get through that problem, they're going to lose that business. Same thing when people invest in stocks. If they don't have a war chest of cash prior to investing their first dollar in stocks, here's what happens. And I've seen it. And I don't allow my clients to do it. If they want to come to me and they say, hey, what's a good investment? I make sure they have enough cash first outside of their investments before they start investing, because I've seen it too many times. People come to me, they invest money, and then they call me and say, oh, something came up and I need it. And they end up selling at the wrong time. The only time you should sell your stock is when it's time to sell your stock, right? Because of business fundamentals, not because you need the cash, okay? If you don't have cash, you're gonna make bad investment decisions when you start investing, because you're gonna sell it for reasons other than business reasons. You're gonna sell it because you need the cash. An emergency came up, I need the cash. It might not be the right time to sell. You're gonna sell at a bad price. Okay, so this is where you build your defense. You remember Dave Ramsey said, you gotta have offense and you gotta have defense. This cash that we're building up is your war chest to prepare you to be a good investor. It's gonna be your defense that's gonna protect you. You don't wanna have to sell your assets at the wrong time, right? Same thing, you don't wanna have to go into debt, and you don't wanna have to sell assets. This cash is protecting you from those bad decisions. This is why rich people stay rich. And then other people venture into stocks and real estate and business, and they fail and they shut down because they didn't have enough cash to get them through. The fact is, there will always be prosperous years, and they will always be followed by less prosperous years. That's the nature of things. If you read the book of Ecclesiastes, things go in cycles. It gets dark, and then the sun comes out. And then the sun goes down, and then it comes back out, right? It starts getting colder and colder in the winter, and then it starts warming up. And it gets hotter and hotter, and then it starts cooling off. That's just the nature of the world we live in. There will always be cycles. It's always been, and it always will be. And if you don't understand that, you won't understand, why am I putting this money in savings and it's doing nothing? It's not doing nothing. It's your defense. It's protecting you, right? Grew up in San Diego. I was a Charger fan, and I was a Charger fan during the Don Coryell area. They had Air Coryell with Dan Fouts, and they had the most electric offense in the NFL. They would first down, they would throw a touchdown, and they would run up these huge scores. But guess what they had? No offense. They'd score in 1 or 2 plays, and then they'd give the ball to the other team, and they'd score too. And it was just these high-scoring games that they'd only win about half the time. They never won a Super Bowl. They had the greatest offense in the NFL, and they could not consistently win because they had no defense. Okay, this cash that you're building up right now is your defense. This cash will be the seeds that you plant in the future. Okay, so build it up and don't be in a rush to invest. Just wait for the opportunity. And when you have cash, opportunities will come more than when you don't have cash. But even when you don't have cash, opportunities come. You gotta let them go right past because you don't have the cash to take advantage of it. Cash is the key. Okay, so this is such an important step, and let it motivate you. Say, I'm not going to get tired or impatient or frustrated. And they said in the video, this is the hardest step because people are like, well, how come I'm still tightening my belt? I have money saved up. Because there's a baby step 4, 5, and 6. We're going to use that cash, but you got to build it up first. Okay, David, when he went to fight Goliath, he gathered 5 smooth stones. Why did he gather 5? He only needed 1. The first one he got is the one he killed him with. But he had to build up that war chest of 5 stones just in case, to protect him. Because what if the first one didn't hit? How would he defend himself? Right? So he had 5 just in case. The virtuous woman says she's not afraid of the winter because all her family is clothed in scarlet. She had reserves, she had savings. She wasn't afraid for winter. She knew it was going to come. The fool would say, well, I don't need to save it. Winter is past, it's never coming again. Of course another winter is coming. Right? This is why you need cash. This is so important. I want to motivate you to be excited about savings because that's going to be the key to open the door to investing. You don't have cash, you'll never be able to invest. You'll never be able to start a business. You'll never be able to start that bakery like Joseph did. You'll never be able to buy stock cheap when the opportunity comes. You'll never be able to buy real estate if you don't have the cash. You'll never be able to have that fourplex. Build the cash. Build the cash. So we just want to encourage you, follow the example of Joseph and build that cash. And don't get weary. Don't be weary. Just continue to build that cash, knowing that when the opportunity comes, you'll be ready and you'll have enough reserves to get you through the difficult times that inevitably will come. But if you don't build that cash, you're going to set yourself up for failure. And you're like, man, I tried investing and I lost my money because you didn't have enough cash. I tried the business, I tried real estate. People that lose it's because they didn't have enough cash to get them through. Okay, this is why this step is so important. Baby step 3, fall in love with baby step 3. Fall in love with saving money, building up that cash, and knowing that you're building a buffer, you're building a war chest. And upon that foundation, right, upon that rock, it's what you're gonna build your portfolio off of, right? The wise man built his house upon a rock. And when the rains came, he had cash set aside to get him through that rainy season. The foolish man built his house on the sand and he didn't have any backup. He didn't have any backup and the rains came and washed him out. Okay, so just want to encourage you and look forward to hoping this little talk will get you through to next week when we get into baby steps 4, 5, and 6, lesson 4. And we're just praying for you. Pray for me. You guys are encouraging me, and I just want to encourage you. Be blessed, and we'll talk to you next week. Amen.